That's no longer true. You can throw money at the problem. If you have enough money and some good data, you can buy enough GPUs and solve basically anything in software. So like, that's gone. The second thing that we knew for sure is like in software, possession is 9/10 of the law. So if you have the customer, you have multiple lock-ins. You have like the migration pane lock-in, you've got the data lock-in, you've got the user interface lock-in. Those are pretty much gone, right? So it's very easy to replicate the code. It's very easy to move the data. And then it's not even going to be a human talking to your software. It's going to be an AI. And AIs are really flexible on how they use user interfaces. So that mode is gone. So I think that's just like the first thing you have to recognize as a CEO, that like, okay, that's going away. So then what is it? Where is your value? What are you delivering? And it turns out there are many things that are of value. But like if you're trying to get like good pricing through any of those things, you're going to be under tremendous pressure. Your price has to be a function of some other value that's much more distinct that you provide.
Got it. And the other thing we've talked about this a lot internally as a firm is that once upon a time, like you would just have maybe, if you have a good product, you might have 10 years to run with that product, maybe 5 years. And now it might be like 5 weeks. Well, we also talk about this like in terms of going public. So companies are staying private a lot longer, which probably is good. If you're going through an existential crisis, you'd much rather do that as a private company than a public company. Yeah. But also, the reason why the SaaS apocalypse is happening is because there are doubts on terminal value.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So everybody who starts a company, they're doing it because they want to create economic value. Yeah. They're capitalists. They're trying to actually benefit from this equation financially. But if you wait too long, maybe your company is worth zero. That's kind of scary. Yeah. And that was always a risk, but it would play out over decades.
Yeah, it's not as fast a risk.
So I guess what do you, if you were, Loud Cloud's around today, you're the CEO, and again, bad example. Sorry to give you.
Very scary.
I know.
Although actually Loud Cloud would be like awesome.
Data, yeah, exactly. you would be very well positioned. But I guess what is it that a CEO should do potentially differently? Obviously move faster, cut faster, be more efficient, throw money at all these things that we've talked about, but it's like, shit, if I go public and I get disrupted, then I have this terrible life of I'm going to be a penny stock. Yeah. If I just wait, there's this chance that I get eviscerated, and this kind of like roadkill or success equation is kind of scary, right? It's always scary, but you would have time, and now it feels like you don't.
Yeah, I think you do have to be honest with yourself on like what it is you have really. And there are companies that get thrown under the bus correctly and ones that don't. And then if you take a lot of these ideas to their logical conclusion, then nothing is worth anything because there are no people at companies. And if there are no people, who's going to buy your shitty software? So But it is more like subtle, and it just tends to take much longer than we think for some of these things to play out. So then the question is, are you getting stronger in that meanwhile, or are you degenerating? So is what's happening, nobody's buying, the money just shifted. The customers are buying other stuff. They're not buying yours. In that case, you have a huge problem. You probably have to, cut deeply and pivot. On the other hand, there's companies that have been slaughtered in the valuation game, but are pretty strong. So I'm on the board of this company, Navan, right? And they're travel. So obviously the SaaS apocalypse, they're dead. No way you're doing travel. But then you look under the covers and you go, well, it actually is a little more complicated than that, because on travel, you actually need explicit relationships to, if I'm providing your travel and you're any kind of company that's important at all, you need to travel globally. So now I need a relationship with every single airline in the world, every single hotel in the world, every train, everything. You've got to deal with that. You've got to kind of connect back to their budgeting systems and all these things. And then the second thing that's nobody wants to do, including OpenAI or Anthropic, is sell to the damn travel manager. Like nobody has a channel to the travel manager. It's just not something like, and you can't even imagine that being a good idea. You want to keep advancing. You want to kind of do the things that Intuit is doing, where like, okay, like turn ourselves into more of an AI company, and then like kind of hold the customer. And by the way, like the AI, like the agentic travel experience turns out to be much more complicated than one would think. And I don't know if it stays that way, but like that's the way it is today. So I think it's very company dependent. Like I don't think it's all one thing, but I do think Brave New World, and if you keep looking at it like the old world and it's got completely different laws of physics, you are definitely going to die.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's talk about venture capital.
And there's a lot of cope going on now too.
Yeah,
so like you got to be careful with that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there are some things that really are features, and before it would take a long time to build a feature, so you might as well, it's comparative advantage.
Yeah.
David Ricardo.
Yeah.
I could weld my own steel, I could grow my own food, but I'm just going to not do that because I can do things that actually produce more economic value for me. But now it's just becoming not that hard to go create features, but features are not products or not companies. And we've always had this distinction. There's feature, product, company, but it's a little bit confusing figuring out which one is which right now, just because the ability to create a feature and create a product and even get all of the data, you know my favorite saying, the best companies have hostages, not customers, like even get some of the data out of the hostage company.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a very, very confusing world in terms of figuring out which one is which is, kind of maybe a good segue to venture capital land of how do you think, when you started this firm in 2009, big financial crisis, well, actually very, very big financial crisis, global financial crisis going on, the biggest. The world has changed a lot since then. How much of what's happening today kind of fits within the mental model of back then, and how much is kind of Brave New World? Maybe riff on that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's really different. So our first fund was $300 million, and we raised it from all the traditional kind of LPs, endowments, charitable foundations, et cetera, fund of funds. We just raised $15 billion for four of the seven funds, so like not even the whole complex. And we raised it from very, very different kinds of investors. So we, like basically none of our LP base was international when we started, and we're at like 35% international money, and it's from all kinds of places. So, and just tech has gotten tech has gotten so much more important. I think that, we have to think in terms of the world, in a way that we just didn't before. So for example, like with, why'd you raise so much money? Which, by the way, I'm kind of mad at myself because I don't even think I articulated internally well enough, because we could have raised even more money.
Next time, don't worry.
Yeah, we had more money on the table. But the way I was thinking about it is, look, America's got to rebuild its entire infrastructure like right now. Because we don't have enough, we don't have enough rare earth minerals. We don't have enough electricity. We don't have enough manufacturing capacity. We have the wrong chips. Like they take way too much damn power. They were built for games. We don't have enough anything kind of to be in this future world. And somebody's got to fund it. And and clearly that's going to take a lot of money. So all that is brand new, and I would say it's like fairly overwhelming in a sense, but it is really, really important. Like we're pretty much out of electricity now in the United States. Like not 12 months from now, like right now.
Well, the China graph is like this, and the U.S. graph is like that.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
the demand
logarithmic.
for these tokens is straight vertical, but the ability to kind of build that capacity is absolutely not vertical. So we need new everything. We invested in a transformer company, not like an AI transformer, like an actual power transformer company, because you need, kind of better, easier to manufacture, more efficient transformers. And the transformer hasn't changed since really we we invent electricity. So like these kinds of things.
Well, I guess so there's an old saying, the cure for high prices is high prices.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's a lot of latency involved. So right now, there are computers that show up with no RAM. Like if you go buy a server from Dell, they're like, sorry, we don't have any RAM to sell you, because all of that has been gobbled up. Because yeah, they could build a new factory, or you and I could decide to go build a DRAM factory. That would take us 5 years.
Yep.
So how do you, I mean, and we don't believe
Got to start now.
you got to start now, but this is actually, if you remember, which you obviously do, 1999, it's like, well, we have to build more fiber, right? We have to build more capacity, but it's obviously very different because all the GPUs are hot. They're all lit right now.
Yeah.
And back then, most of the fiber was dark.
Yes.
But how do you get, like...
Yeah, well, there were bottlenecks. When we were building fiber, the bottlenecks were kind of in different places. So, the servers weren't capable of putting, like, bits out even fast enough to do video right. And like the software was really, we didn't have load balancers, we didn't have application servers, we didn't have anything. And so you had all this fiber and all this bandwidth, but like you couldn't actually build the applications. And then most of the end users weren't, it's a network too. So, people weren't connected on the other end. So it just didn't work. And then we had the .com crash and all these things. So now we're in a little different place because almost everything is a bottleneck. I do think what's going to happen is like we'll probably have enough chips long before we have enough electricity. So NVIDIA will make enough chips, but then we won't have enough memory and we won't have enough electricity. So we're in that kind of situation now. So I think you really have to study where we are at each point in the supply chain and figure out how to alleviate those bottlenecks. And by the way, God bless Elon, the terafab, that's the idea. He's going to just go deal with all the bottlenecks himself, which is how he does things, which is why we need him.
Indeed.